What's up, guys? Welcome to the best day of the week. It is True Crime Tuesday, okay? And if you don't know what True Crime Tuesday is, it is a day where I am going to sit down and do my makeup and tell you guys a true crime story at the same time. So this week we have the case of Colleen Stan, and she is actually a survivor. I'll get to the details of the crime later, but if you guys like this kind of video, please subscribe below, please give it a like, and I'm here for you guys with a new video every Tuesday. So let's get through this intro and get into the story. So this story starts on May 19th in 1977, and it starts with Colleen Stan, who is hitchhiking on the way from Oregon, where she lives, to California, where her friend's house is. So she makes it all the way to Red Bluff, California, and she's waiting on the side of the road for another car to come by so she can continue her hitchhiking journey. And there's a couple cars that stop, and she just kind of gets a weird vibe. She's at least a little bit aware of, not getting into a creepy car or, a white van or something like that, notorious for being a little sketchy. There's a car that pulls up and it has about 5 guys in it, 4 or 5 guys, and they're all like, "Hey girl, come on in here, we'll give you a ride. Where do you want to go?" And of course, Colleen is like, "Okay, definitely not getting in your car, I'll pass, thank you, move on to the next one." So another car pulls up, and this car has a man in it. He's driving, and his wife's in the passenger seat, and they also have a baby in the back seat. So she's thinking like, okay, this seems like a cute little family. She said the man looked like kind of nerdy, had some big glasses on, the wife just looked like a normal, nice woman, I guess. And they offer her a ride. So she gets in and she sees that the man driving the car is kind of looking back at her a little too much in the rearview mirror, kind of like staring at her. And, she just plays it off and she's like, oh, maybe he's just, checking me out or whatever, but doesn't really get creeped out enough to the point where she wants to get out of the car, feels like she's in danger or anything. So they keep driving, and this man's name is Cameron Hooker, and his wife's name is Janice, and they get about 20 miles or so down the road, and they're like, "Do you mind if we pull over here and we're just gonna look at these ice caves that are along this back road over here?" And Colleen doesn't really think anything of it. She's just grateful for the ride that they're giving her. So she's like, "Yeah, sure, we can stop for a minute and you guys can take your pictures and look at the ice caves." And so they do. And they get down on this back road, and Janice and Cameron both get out of the car with their baby, and they walk off into these woods, and Colleen just kind of stays in the car. She's chilling. She's kind of looking around for a second, like, where did these guys go? And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, Cameron comes around to Colleen's side of the car, and he opens up her car door and has a knife in his hand. He's forcing her down in the back seat, and he ends up placing this wooden box over her head that he had created himself. And it's basically made to disorient her. No light can get in, no sound. It's soundproofed inside, so nobody can hear her screaming. So he ties her up, has this box on her head, and they start driving, and he's gonna take her back to their house. So when they get back to Cameron and Janice's house, he takes Colleen and puts her down in the basement, and he has created this coffin-like box made of wood that he puts Colleen inside. So obviously Colleen is terrified at this point. She doesn't know what's going on. She doesn't know where she is, who these people are, or anything. And all she knows is she's trapped inside this box and there's no way for her to get out. Her hands are tied, her feet are tied. She can't move. You know, the box is so cramped that it just confines her and she's trapped. So each day after this abduction, Cameron takes Janice out of the box and he ties her up and hangs her by her wrists from the ceiling and tortures her. He whips her, electrocutes her, hits her, beats her, whatever he wants to do to her, he does. And Cameron would actually only let her out of this box for one time every day. And in this time, she would get to eat. She would get to use a bedpan, not even a toilet, and she would be tortured. And then she would go right back into the box. Now, at this point, I was kind of wondering what Janice's whole role in this thing was. Is she going along with this? Is she participating in the torture of Colleen? Or is she just an innocent bystander? And it turns out that Janice had actually made a deal with Cameron that if she could have a baby, he could have a sex slave. Yeah, my thoughts exactly. So also, it turns out that Janice was the previous sex slave for Cameron before they picked up Colleen. So all this time, I'm not sure how long Janice was there or with him before Colleen showed up, but Janice at this point was just happy to have someone else to take the beatings, and she could have a baby and have her dream family life with Cameron. So the only stipulation that Janice made, if Cameron had the sex slave, he could not actually have sexual intercourse with her. He could only have intercourse with Janice. So what would happen is Cameron would whip and torture Colleen, and then Janice and Cameron would have sex in front of Colleen and make her watch it. So after days of this torture went on, I'm sure Colleen was trying to find a way to get out of here and was plotting her escape. But Cameron tells her that he's actually part of this group called the Company, and the Company is always watching her. If she were to try to escape, they would get her and they would kill her. So it terrifies Colleen so much that she just feels like there's no way out. She's trapped and she's just gonna have to endure this torture until she can find a way out somehow. He also told her that her life and her family's life were at stake if she ever tried to escape. So she was also fearful that he would come for her family and try to kill them, or, she just didn't know what could happen if she tried to leave. So she never made the attempt. So to dehumanize Colleen even more, they gave her the slave name K, with just the letter K, and Colleen had to call them ma'am and master. So every day Colleen would be placed in this box and taken out to be tortured. And not only did Cameron make this box for her to be in, and the box he put over her head, but he also created other torture devices, like a stretching machine that was used in medieval times, and he would put her on it, tie her wrists up, tie her ankles, and stretch her body until it couldn't be stretched anymore. And Colleen said that she actually still sustains injuries and shoulder pain from being stretched on that torture device. So after a while, Cameron and Janice decide that they are going to move into a mobile home. So of course they take Colleen with them. And this mobile home, obviously, there's no basement, so they have nowhere to keep Colleen at this point. So they decide the best thing to do is to take her, and Cameron built a box that would go underneath their waterbed. They had a waterbed. She would be put into the box, and she was in there for 23 hours out of the day, only let out for an hour. And during that hour, like I said earlier, she'd be tortured, and she would have, time to eat and go to the bathroom and then be placed back in the box. I mean, so it's just complete sensory deprivation at this point. She is kind of losing her mind, So after a few years had gone by, they actually ended up trusting Colleen enough to where they would let her do household chores for them. She would do the dishes, do their laundry, clean the kitchen, whatever they wanted her to do. Cameron actually even allowed Colleen to babysit their kids from time to time, who had no idea that Colleen was actually a sex slave that lived under their bed, which is so crazy to me. Like, I don't know how you keep that from kids, Like, they never saw her or anything. I mean, I don't know. It's just strange to me. So, since Colleen never attempted to escape when Cameron would give her these freedoms, he ended up trusting her more and more over time. And eventually it got to the point where she was just like another member of their family. So you're probably wondering, like I was, how is Colleen's family doing? Is anybody looking for her? Do the cops know about this? Like, do they have any leads? What's going on? So it turns out that her family was looking for her, and they were super worried. Her friends had called when she never showed up that night, and they told her parents, like, I don't know where she could be. She never showed up to our house, and they were all looking for her ever since that night. The only thing that they could think is that she had run off and joined some cult or something, or they just didn't know what to think. I mean, it was either that or she had been killed. They obviously didn't want to think the worst, but they didn't have any leads or anything to tell them where she might be. So after about 2.5 years into this abduction, Cameron finally decides to let Colleen call her family. So when she does, obviously Cameron tells her, like, I'm going to be standing right here. You're not going to be able to say anything. And if you try anything, I will kill you and I'll kill your family. So you just tell them, you're fine and everything's okay and you miss them and love them, and that's that, no funny business, basically. Then moving on to 1981, Cameron actually lets Colleen go and visit her family at their home. But of course, he came with her. And he says, okay, we're going to tell them this story that you and I are engaged and we are getting married and I'm on this business trip and, we just decided we'd stop by and say hi. It's been a long time, we should come visit. So when they get there, obviously her family is so, excited to see her and meet Cameron and everything, and they just think, how great is it that our daughter found this man and whatever. And they seemed to be very happy together and obviously did a great job at acting. So while they were there visiting, Cameron had threatened her so much, telling her that, the company is watching you, and if you do anything, we have this whole house bugged, and they will come and kill you and your family. So if you make one wrong move, that's it. This is over. Your family's dead. So at this point, Colleen is just so scared and so brainwashed that she believes in this company so much that she just is not willing to put herself or her family at risk to try to escape or tell them what's going on. So before Colleen and Cameron leave, her mom's like, hey, let's, get a picture of you guys together, the happy couple, and blah, blah, blah. And they're like, okay, so they take this picture, which I'll put up here for you guys to see. And honestly, it looks pretty convincing to me. I would never think that, this is a sex slave situation or, she doesn't look scared. She doesn't have anything on her face that's telling you that she needs help or anything. So they take that picture, and Colleen's mom's like, where do you guys live? Where are you living right now? And maybe we can come visit you guys sometime and stuff like that. And Cameron quickly, blows her off, and he's like, oh, actually, we're moving right now. So we can't tell you our address because, if you go visit that address, we won't be there anymore. And so why don't we just tell you when we move, and we'll contact you and give you the new address. So, Colleen's mom keeps prying. I think she obviously had some type of intuition that something wasn't right, and she just could not get anything out of them. So they end up leaving. Colleen goes right back to being tortured, being in the box, like nothing's changed. And then this ended up going on for 3 more years until 1983, when Colleen would finally be allowed to have a job working part-time at a local motel. But the thing was that even though Colleen had this job now, she still felt like she was always being watched by the company. So it was like she didn't know if people she worked with were part of this or what. So she could never tell anybody. She just had to act like, a normal girl, and nothing was wrong, and, go about her business. So another thing that was happening at this time is Cameron actually ended up changing up the agreement he had with Janice about not having sex with Colleen. And he actually started having sex with her once every month. So obviously Janice did not like this, and she was definitely having some jealousy issues and things like that. And then one day, Cameron actually came to her and he was like, I just feel like I want to marry Colleen too, and I want her to be my second wife. So obviously, this makes Janice even more mad, and she's just like, I don't know what to do with myself now. So what ends up happening is Janice goes to a priest at her church, and she talks to him and confesses to him, everything that's gone on with the abuse and with Colleen and everything. And the priest obviously says, okay, like, obviously you need to get out of this situation. Okay? Like, this is not healthy. This is not normal. So in August of 1984, 7 years after Colleen was abducted, Janice came to Colleen when she was at work one day, and she tells Colleen everything. And she's like, Cameron is not a part of this company that he keeps telling you about. It's not real. It doesn't even exist. And, you just need to get yourself out of here. So obviously Colleen is shocked by this news that Janice is telling her, and she's like, wow, okay, I guess I'm out, deuces. And she runs to the bus station, which you would think that she would go to the police at this point, but she was just so brainwashed and so not in her right mind that she just didn't even think, like, oh yeah, I should probably report this to the police, you know? So she gets to the bus station and she calls up Cameron and she's like, you know, Janice told me everything and I'm leaving and I'm never coming back. You're never going to see me again. It's kind of funny to me because Colleen said that Cameron started crying to her on the phone, which I'm just like, what the heck? Like, what a narcissistic, you know, like manipulative thing to do to someone, start crying. Like, they're gonna come back to you if you cry to them. Oh, it just shows you, I mean, it's just funny, like, how twisted people are. Like, he thought that would work, you know? He really thought that would work. Boys are dumb. So before Colleen left, Janice actually asked her, you know, not to report things and just give Cameron time to reform, or whatever that means. 3 months later, in November, Janice actually ends up calling the police on Cameron and tells them everything, and also tells them about another woman that Cameron had raped, tortured, and killed years prior. So the police end up searching for this body of this woman that Janice is talking about, and they cannot find anything. So Cameron actually never ended up being charged with her murder. However, he was charged with 8 counts of rape, sodomy, kidnapping, and forced oral copulation. And in exchange for immunity, Janice decided that she would testify against her husband and tell them about all the torturous things that he had done to her. Colleen also decided that she would testify during this trial as well. And she told the courts about all of the trauma she had faced, about being in the box, and they actually had a replica of that box sitting in the middle of the courtroom during their whole trial. Also, during the trial, Cameron tried to convince the jury that Colleen was actually there on her own volition, and she wanted to be there because she loved Cameron and they had fallen for each other. And he also claimed that all of their sex together was consensual, and he would have never done any of those things that she was claiming that he did. So thankfully, the jury and the judge did not believe Cameron at all. They saw right through all of his lies and everything, and they ended up charging him. He was found guilty for 7 out of 8 counts of rape and kidnapping for Colleen Stan. And the judge actually stated that he was one of the worst psychopaths he had ever seen in his career. The judge ended up sentencing him to 104 years in prison. So Janice and Colleen now both have a new identity, and unfortunately, they both suffer from chronic pain and other physical ailments related to the torture they endured. Colleen underwent years of therapy and actually ended up having a family of her own. Unfortunately, she's had a number of broken relationships and hasn't found the right person for her yet, but she is still hopeful. Colleen also works at a charity that helps victims of these same types of crimes, and she is obviously opposed to the parole of Cameron and never wants to see him get out of jail. Cameron actually ended up applying for parole and was denied in 2015. At that 2015 hearing, Colleen actually said she was not convinced that he wouldn't do it again, so she did not want to see him out of prison. And I think one of the most worrisome saddest parts of this case is now that COVID-19 is going on, Cameron could possibly be released from prison, and this would happen next spring. So obviously Cameron's an older man at this point, but still to know that there is a man that committed these torturous, heinous crimes, I mean, seriously disturbing, and he could be back out on the streets. That is just so disgusting to me. So I don't know what we can do, people of the YouTube world out there, but I mean, it's disturbing, it's scary stuff, but I guess, you know, what can we do? I don't know. All right, guys, so I'm gonna pop this lip color on, and that is that. So I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. I know it was a little dark, but it's nice to see that she finally escaped and we have a survivor story, which is awesome, right? So if you guys like this video, I hope you stuck around till the end. Hit that subscribe button below, smash the like, and we will be back here again next Tuesday for another true crime story and more makeup, all the things. So I will see you guys right here next Tuesday. Bye!